A bill was just passed in France for the police to remotely activate your phone camera, microphone, and to spy on people. We're going to talk about whether or not that is an ethical tool of power for the police to have today here on the left wing. My name is Desmond Price of the Independent Thought Podcast, joined by my co-host John Cooper of Counterpoint Politics, and our guest for today, TJ from Power is Taken, Not Given off of TikTok. We are going to be talking about an international story for today. And this is coming from an account that I follow pretty consistently on Instagram, Ground News. They have this slide up here that says France passes bill to allow the police to remotely activate your phone camera, microphone, and spy on people. So this is coming out of an article from Tech Radar. They say that French police should be allowed to spy on citizens remotely through their phones and other devices if suspected of breaking the law. Now, this is an outcome from the parliament session that occurred on July 5th, which saw a great majority of lawmakers voting in favor of giving authorities new sweeping powers to spy on citizens. Not even the use of security tools like a VPN or encrypted messaging apps would be able to prevent this new type of state surveillance once this act becomes law. As privacy advocates and politicians from both sides of the political spectrum raise concerns over this decision, Justice Minister Éric Dupond-Moretti keeps rejecting allegations that this provision will turn the country into the next Orwellian dystopian nightmare. He said in an article from Le Monde that we are far away from the totalitarianism of 1984 and that people's lives will be saved by this new law. Now, once this measure is enforced, authorities will be able to collect geolocation details of anyone suspected of a crime, punishable by at least 5 years in jails. Laptops, cars, phones, computers, and every connected object device. Officers will be allowed to spy on potential criminals by activating their camera, microphone, or their GPS. Now, MPs from Macron's ranks pushed for an amendment which would limit the reach of these remote spying activities only when, quote, justified by the nature and the seriousness of the crime, unquote, and for strictly proportional duration. Oh, and here's the kicker, though. This won't exceed 6 months, but also people carrying sensitive information like doctors, lawyers, judges, MPs, they would all be exempt. Now, for those who might not be quite aware of some of the reasons why this bill might have been sent forth to the parliament in the first place, there have been protests erupting across the country of France this whole year. Now, this kind of was stemming back to earlier in this year where President Macron had gone to the government and said that he wanted to raise the age from 62 to 64 for French citizens to be able to access their pensions. This caused national protests all over the place, riots in some cases, and even more recently, there was more protests that erupted after a police officer shot and killed a 17-year-old Algerian immigrant who was in the country. This led to more riots breaking out. People drove a car into the home of a mayor. And so now they are in a place where they feel like they need to increase the power of the police. So the first question that I want to ask to y'all today is, under the circumstances, or maybe forget the circumstances, just in general, should the police have the kind of power that we are talking about? What do you think, John?
Fuck no. Thank you, everyone. That's been this episode of The Left Wing. I've been John Cooper. No, it is so. There are like few like universal moral rules I think everyone should live by in life, but I think one of them is, if Mel Gibson plays a character in a movie that has this moral rule, you should probably follow it. And this is literally the Dark Knight technology that Mel. Did I say Mel Gibson?
Yeah,
I didn't mean. I meant Freckles guy. Who plays God? Morgan Freeman. Sorry,
Morgan Freeman.
If Mel Gibson has a moral, you shouldn't have it. But if Morgan Freeman does, it's probably a good one. And this is what Lucius Foxy quits over. He's like, as long as you have this technology at Wayne Enterprises, you won't have me. Because it's fucking ludicrous for anyone to have the power to activate any cell phone, turn on the camera, turn on the audio, and spy on anyone they want. Forget the fucking police and the dangers of the state having this. No one should have this power. This should be illegal for anyone to have, let alone the police. And I know that like people are divided about like the police are the good guys or the bad guys. Everyone on this show is probably going to be like, yeah, a little fuck the police, but a lot of conservatives would be like, no, bleed blue, whatever. But like, please, conservatives, like limited government, small government, anybody taking this, because like giving the government the power to unilaterally spy on anyone with only the basis that they think they may have committed a crime. And by spy, I mean turn your phone camera on whenever you're doing anything. Like, come on, guys. Come on.
I'm so glad you brought up The Dark Knight. I'm so glad you brought that up, because
you brought up a movie reference last time, and I was like, no, that's my job. I gotta beat him to
it. In an otherwise essentially flawless film, that was a very weird plot device. Because what's the lesson we're supposed to learn here? Because, spying on a private citizen, superhero or not, a private citizen, Bruce Wayne, spied on millions of people in the city, but it's okay because he caught the bad guy and he promised never to do it again. I'm like, all right, Batman already has like a lot of fascist elements to his existence of him being the richest man on the planet. And he uses it to beat up, homeless people dressed like clowns. It's weird. But, going like full NSA and then saying, oh, well, it's just, I really need to do it, does like bring us some interesting questions. But with this thing with the police having the power to, my first thought when this happened was, I don't know why I did the Italian meme thing. My first thought when this happened was that we kind of already, like, even excluding like Patriot Act stuff, like not even that, going that deep, we do kind of have an understanding that, in order to catch people, like sometimes you got to wiretap some folks. We get it, like we do, like you want to bring down Al Capone, you want to bring down the mob, you get a warrant and you bug someone's phone, and so we're like, okay, we understand that, but this is a lot more than that. I mean, when I was reading up about this, I knew that they could turn on your phone camera, they could turn on your recording device, which we already assume corporations are already doing. I mean, how many times you have a conversation with your friends saying, oh yeah, I was just talking about this and now I see ads for it. My phone's definitely listening. We all make jokes about everything. So we already kind of assume that's happening, but we don't think the cops are doing it. That's a little different. Also, I didn't know until like researching for this, Desmond, you read about it, how it's not just your phone. It is like every electronic device like in existence. It's your laptop, your car. I mean, just anything. And they can turn it on, record you, not just under certain times. Like, oh, he's getting a call from this other person we suspect of doing crime. Let's turn on the wiretap now. Or we like Tony Soprano stuff. No, this is like you 24/7. And my favorite thing about this is what's the guy's name again? The Justice Minister Éric Dupond-Moretti says that we would only do this maximum a few dozen times a year. So, okay, that does not make me feel more comfortable. He came right out and says, like, man, that's a lot of times. Like, how many international jewel thieves are you guys going after here? Like, why are we going so hard on this? That was
where the fuck is Bane? Like,
Bane guy, like, what are we going after? And the man, Desmond, that part where they said out loud that this will not apply to doctors, journalists, lawyers, judges, and politicians. Now, listen, journalists, all right, I see why they have an exemption. I can kind of connect the dots on that one. Okay.
I'm okay with doctors even.
I'm okay. Yeah, it's like, but you're telling me lawyers, judges, and politicians, people who are famously, exempt from ever doing crimes or corruption, why are they? You don't think that, wouldn't you just start doing crime with politicians more now because they can't?
If they inverted that, they're like, we're only going to do this for politicians. I'd be like, okay, you got me.
Good.
I was gonna say I might want to darken the mood a little bit here because there was a reason, because I chose this topic this week very specifically because it is a theme that I have been coming back to time and time again over many years now on my individual project, another project that I have with our other co-host Erica. not just the police. The first thing that needs to be, like addressed here is that for those who didn't realize, your phone already had this capability. So the developers of these phones already have it in place so that these things can be turned on remotely. Now, again, you kind of mentioned the Patriot Act briefly. Between the Patriot Act, the National Defense Authorization Act, which we also talked about this week with the Ukraine story, there is currently in America an almost unlimited amount of power given to the state about being able to access our data. An unlimited amount. And I don't think enough people actually really take in what that means. They have access to everything, especially as we're adding more things like Ring into our homes now, where you can see the perimeter of everything. Or you think about these iRobots that can come into your home and kind of know the whole layout, the layout. And then you're thinking about something like Alexa or your Google Homes, which in order for them to be voice activated, they have to be listening at all times. And we've all kind of just surrendered that much privacy already. And so for the police to have this, it does feel striking, but it's also just the next evolution of us abandoning any and all privacy that we've ever had. And I think this story isn't just about the police, but about the entire surveillance state as a whole, not just in France, but everywhere. How much, have we given away to these people? Shouldn't we have some privacy in our lives? But apparently the answer is none. And it seems like they just keep encroaching and taking more and taking more and taking more. And I think more people should be aware and honestly to be rejecting the amount of power we're just giving over to the state. And to your point, John, it has always made me just completely just laugh that conservatives do not seem to understand that the police are the state. It just blows my mind that they just cannot make that distinction. Just they are the government. How do you think they get paid? But
teachers are the state, but the police not.
Teachers are the state, yes.
Unless the teacher is telling a student to take out a student loan. In that case, it's just their fault. The government wasn't coercing them to do that at all. But they will be training your kids. It depends what the teacher's having you do, is essentially what I'm saying. No, I completely agree with you here, Desmond. It is insane the amount of power and to me, it's actually crazy because I remember back in high school, I thought it was just fuck, this has been my whole life. This, of course, they're listening to my phone. Of course, this is just what I've been born into. And I feel like this is a generational thing where it's just we just have my entire life almost the Patriot Act has applied to me. I haven't lived in a world where the government hasn't had unilateral access to my data, and it's crazy how easily that was accepted. And it also does show you, to put a little bit of an optimistic spin on this, but not really, but how easy it would be to accomplish some of the things we say are impossible in this country, universal basic income. You can't tell me that putting the Batman, fucking echolocator technology across all of America and giving it to the police is any less of an infringement of your rights than paying a little bit more taxes so that no one lives in poverty. If we really wanted to, we could do so many things in this country that are so much less damaging to us than these things are. But no, they tell us that we need to give up, these privacy rights for our own safety and our own protection, meanwhile being totally okay with just forcing people to live on the streets. That's for, we have to give up our privacy for our own protection. But if we actually need protection, then, you're shit out of luck unless you're a billionaire who got lost in a submarine. It just is insane to me. And TJ, I wanted to just mention your point earlier, how you're confused about the the Batman, why did it have to be so fascist? I have a very detailed and in-depth explanation of how in the text of the Dark Knight trilogy, the Joker is meant to be seen as an anti-hero and Batman is a fascist villain. And if anyone wants to hear about that, we will make another episode. Let us know in the comments. We will just have that conversation because I can go on for a long time and prove and just fucking prove it. But let us know in the comments. We'll only do it if you let us know in the comments.
That's why they had to kill Heath Ledger. They had to get him up because they couldn't let the story. They couldn't let him actually make it known to the public. what you mentioned, John, about how easy it is for us to give these rights away. I see what you're saying, but during the break, we were talking. John and I were talking about the Titan submarine incident and how it's one of the very few true unifying moments that we've had as a culture in a very long time. And everyone was having the time of their life with the story. And it was really fun. And I mentioned how I refer to it as September 12th, but good. That, we all were like united, but we were united in mockery of a very deserving target rather than absolute bloodlust. And after September 11th, everyone was terrified. And they were terrified and they were angry. So they needed, some catharsis. We needed to identify the enemy and, ask God's blessing to go destroy the infidel. And then we also were terrified for our own safety. So people, not everybody, but a lot more people than, we should be proud of said, yeah, this Patriot Act is good. We should give the government the right to find out what books you're looking at the library, to find out what websites you're going to track your emails and see who you're calling. Yeah, NSA, go ahead, please take it. And with France, though, that tipping point was nowhere near 9/11, like at all. I mean, it's like as bad as what was going on in France. 9/11, it was not. That's what was interesting to me. I thought it was actually very little, but the people don't really want it. It turns out that the politicians do, and they it doesn't apply to them. So I can say, which is wild they put that in there. But I do have some good news with this dark story that I did see coming to our rescue was the UN Human Rights Committee. They stated that they believe the surveillance powers granted to the French intelligence agencies were excessively broad. So you're out of luck now, boys. In France, the UN's coming after you. So I'm sure they're going to stop. I'm sure it's like your game is through. The White Hats are coming to take care of the problem. Don't worry about it. I know we're all worried this segment, but it's all taken care of, boys. The UN's gonna come to the rescue.
You mentioned this, this isn't like a huge watershed moment in France that they're doing this over, but I do want to not push back, but like what's going on in France right now, and this is going to sound a little bit conspiracy theory tinfoil hat, but it really isn't. What's going on in France right now is a precursor to what is going to be going on in many parts of the Western world. Because what is happening is they are experiencing a population crisis. They are experiencing an aging population that is essentially, they are not going to be able to support the social programs they have in place for the aging population with the population that is going to become part of the working, the working public. And France is getting ahead of it. You mentioned, Desmond, at the beginning of this, how they raised unilaterally, just without democratic consent, raising the retirement age is what kind of started all of this. And they did it because they feel they have to, because either you let in more immigrants as part of your workforce, and we know they got fucking problems with that in France. Not that we don't hear, but France has some particular problems with that. Or raise the retirement age and make your working class work more. Or, of course, have billionaires make less profits. But we're not even going to consider that as a possibility. And so, what we're seeing in France right now, I swear to fucking God, if we continue this same course of trajectory, we are going to start seeing it in more and more countries, including the U.S. The U.S. is in a advantageous position that we get a lot of immigrants and we do let a lot of them in. And this is slightly less of a problem for us, but it's going to come for us. And be ready, because the government will follow the example of France, especially if all of this works and they're able to put all this through, that we are going to follow the example of France, and they're going to unilaterally raise your retirement age. They're going to unilaterally deny you Social Security. They're going to unilaterally force you to work until your bones fucking turn to dust. And that is what is coming for us if we don't stand together as a working class across an international community and say, go fuck yourself, you can't spy on us. Go fuck yourself, you can't make us work that long. We deserve more out of life than to just be worked to death.